Welcome to Beyond Movement Project. My name is Matthew Philly, husband, father, entrepreneur, and it's my mission to bring you people who are doing incredible things that will help you reach your next level. Join me as I look beyond movement to discover how we can become the most powerful version of ourselves. Let's go. What's going on, movers? Today's episode, we sit down with one of CrossFit's most popular and respected games athletes. He's competed in the individual events 6 times at the games, has 3 top 20 finishes, and has 4 first place regional titles to his name. His social media game is on point, to say the least, with some of the funniest TikTok and Instagram reels I have seen. In this conversation, we dive deep into his mindset behind his training and competitions, how he approaches his habits and routines, and where he is going next with his athletic career. This is episode 7 with Lucas Parker. Luke, man, thanks for joining me, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, man. I actually wanted to ask you about your nickname, Luke. It's kind of funny because I'm Canadian too. And I work with a bunch of Americans, and sometimes I actually say like I need a toque today, and right. I find that the Americans have no idea what that word is. Do you find like that's a Canadian word or what?
Well, I mean, it's just the correct word. I think the Americans call it a beanie, right? Which I mean, there's no beans involved in the process or in the design, so I don't know where that came from. But yeah, I think I have a lot of like Latin American fans. I think they're very passionate about CrossFit, and they, I guess the word tocar is a verb in Spanish. So I think a lot of people think it might be like a Spanish reference, but no, a toque is just the knit cap or the beanie that some people wear when it's chilly out or all year in Canada. And it rhymes with Luke. So it seemed like a good handle for my social media.
It was a perfect fit, man. And I guess that epic beard that seems to have its own personality kind of is a fake face toque for you.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't have much hair on my head, so I got to cover up somehow.
You know, we were just talking about the fact that I thought you shaved your beard, which was clearly false. If you shaved your beard, do you think anybody would recognize you?
Rarely. Obviously, my friends and family can sort of tell who I am, but there was actually a party, like an event I went to in Vancouver at CrossFit Vancouver years and years ago. They have something called the Nuts Cup, which is a fundraiser workout that they do there. And as part of the event, I did like a beard shave event where people would, donate money and get to participate. And then after I shaved, I went to the after party and nobody recognized me. It was pretty hilarious.
That's unreal. So you're just walking around and nobody had any idea who you were.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how long have you been growing it?
This iteration or like in my life?
In general. Since you were like toddler.
I think I had the start of a beard in the 7th or 8th grade, but this particular one, I think the last time I shaved was maybe January sometime. Yeah.
Man, it grows in thick and quick.
Thick and quick. That's right. Wasn't that the name of a workout at the CrossFit Games one year?
I have no idea.
It was like a rope climb workout. Yeah, I guess so.
All right, man. So I want to talk about basically you seem to be somebody who's very independently driven. So I kind of wanted to chat with you a little bit about that. So the amount of sports you've done, it seems like you've been active your whole life. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but upon research, I found you were doing rugby, you've done karate, a little bit of soccer, and then your most notable sports is in weightlifting and, competitive CrossFit since 2009. I don't know how long you've been doing CrossFit, but competitively since 2009, correct?
That's correct. I think you got my my pedigree pretty accurate there. There was a moment in high school training. We had a really good strength and conditioning coach for our rugby team, and this was in 2005 and 6. And I remember he mentioned one morning in the weight room, like, "Hey, have you ever heard of this CrossFit thing?" And I sort of said no and kind of just brushed it off. And then years later, so maybe I was kind of doing a bit of CrossFit back then, because we were learning all the basic movements. I was doing power cleans and box jumps and pistols and and wall balls. So some reasonably CrossFit specific movements, but in the context of rugby training. So we were doing, interval sprints on the field and things like that. We weren't really doing kipping pull-ups and rowing workouts and things like that.
Yeah, that would be kind of perfect for rugby training as well, right? And back then,
Yeah.
I feel like CrossFit was so new too.
Right. So yeah, it was one of those things where now when you say, have you heard of CrossFit? Most people say yes. Back then they maybe think that you're trying to recruit them into some sort of religion or something.
Yeah, like a pyramid scheme or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was curious about, like, it's again, when I had mentioned that it seemed like you've always been independently driven in a way. Um, Sorry, I feel like we lost you there. Again, as I was bringing up in the past, it sounds like you seem like you've always been independently driven. Now, when I say that, I'm kind of looking at how you programmed for yourself for quite a few years when you were in the games, correct? Like for the 6-year span that you were competing in the games, you were doing your own programming.
That is partially correct. I did my own programming for most of the time, and then when I actually had my best performance in I think it was 2015, I placed 14th overall. I had a coach that year, so it goes to show you. Well, maybe it's sometimes better to just ask for help and get some guidance.
Yeah. Do you feel like you were just being stubborn about it, or you enjoyed programming for yourself?
Uh, some of this, some of that. I think I like, just having some control and independence. And so the coach that I ended up bringing on was my good friend and my mentor, Cam Burtwell from CrossFit Vic City here in Victoria, BC. And so he was always my sounding board, my, advisor as I would sort of mess around with my programming, when I sort of started in 2010. So I would, come to him with some ideas and he'd say, well, you should probably, cut back on this or change this. And then I would, often just ignore him. But so he was always there for me. And then finally it got to the point where I was like, hey, I'm not really getting the results I want. Can you please just like take this over and I'll just see how that goes. And it went well.
And now you're working with people in Training Think Tank?
Yeah, that's correct. So I've been living in Toronto, which is in the same time zone as Atlanta, and actually a super easy flight down there. I can leave Toronto at 8 a.m. and be in the gym in Atlanta like around noon. So that's a good fit for me. And that's Max, Coach Max at Training Think Tank, has been helping me out for the last couple of years, and has definitely helped me navigate some changes in my body as I mature as an athlete and deal with old nagging issues, as well as navigate, I guess, the mental and physical and performance demands of the new like scope or structure of the season. So basically you need to be in competitive shape more like all throughout the year, versus in the old days of CrossFit, you just needed to train for regionals or whatever, or the open or the games or whatever you happen to be competing in. It was sort of like a 1 or 2 peaks per year type of situation. Whereas now you almost need to be ready to go at the drop of a hat and hit a sanctional and take first place if you want to get to the games.
Right. Like you always have to be peaked almost.
Yeah, I think that that will vary per different athlete and where they live and what level they are. But the general idea, I think, is that you need to be more competition ready more throughout the year now.
Right. So going back to when you were doing your own programming and just kind of looking at your kind of athletic career, how do you find that you've kept yourself accountable for, when the going gets tough? Because obviously motivation is fleeting, right? Like sometimes you're motivated, sometimes the last thing you feel like doing is getting off your ass and doing the training, right? So what do you
Definitely.
find has been like something that's been helpful for you to stay accountable and stay on top of it and disciplined?
Well, I think that's changed for me a lot over the years. I think when I was younger and more stubborn, as we discussed, I would lay out, weeks and months, if not multiple months in a macro cycle of training, and I'd have all the days figured out, all the sets and reps figured out. And if I didn't, stick to it exactly, I got really, hard on myself, and saw that as a setback and a failure. But so the concept that I try to keep at the forefront of my mind is like, it's all money in the bank. So yeah, sure, you were supposed to do, 10 sets of 3 on the back squat, but you only did 7 sets. Oh, well, are you a worse athlete now? I mean, it's all money in the bank. So, uh, and I also often, like, in terms of periodization, right, which is the idea of, changing your training focus and the things that you do, like, throughout the year or throughout the cycle, depending on your demands. Well, there's at the elite level, I think periodization often looks like injury-based periodization and mental health-based periodization, which basically means, well, if your ankles hurt, then that means that we're in an upper body phase. Oh, if your shoulders hurt, then that means that we're working on, pistols and box jumps or whatever. And that's the reality for a lot of top athletes, is just navigating, like, essentially daily. And that is sort of the route that I've been in more recently. And I think that's kind of the approach that the Training Think Tank crew takes, is going sort of more just based on daily athlete feedback. How did things go yesterday? How do they feel today? Okay, well, that's what we'll modify for this session. So it's more of sort of a go with the flow approach, with the idea being, well, yeah, just put some money in the bank today, and that'll pay off tomorrow.
Yeah, I love that. So more focused on like progression over perfection kind of thing.
I think so. And if we want to make it more scientific, it's like, okay, well, what's the approach that's going to allow for the greatest accumulation on average of training, strain over, so let's say, like, let's look at a month. So you can train your ass off as hard as you possibly can, give it everything you have for one day or one weekend of, like, a training camp. But then if you're, laid up on the couch because you're so sore and so burned out from that weekend, then you have, let's say, 2 really intense days and you need 3 or 4 days to recover from that. Is that better for you in the long haul, or is it better to, distribute that a bit more reasonably over the course of multiple days, multiple weeks, so that when you do look at that month on average was a higher strain on your body and made you a better athlete?
Just more output necessarily.
Yeah, more output, more practice. You can think of CrossFit as like a cellular sport where you need muscle cell strain and metabolic strain. You can also think of it as a skill sport like golf, where the more swings you do with the better technique, the better you're going to get. So, if you can take more golf swings, maybe that's doing, snatches with a PVC or an empty barbell. Maybe that's practicing your rowing technique. You're doing swings on the rings and transition drills. There's all that stuff that doesn't fall into the category of a hard conditioning workout or a brutal, CrossFit Metcon. But that's what a lot of top athletes need to do.
Yeah, I suppose that perception of, like, the skill aspect to it, like, as you said, golf swing, right, can be kind of looked at as at any sport, but CrossFit has so many different variations of different things that it's like,
yeah,
if you don't work on one thing for an extended period of time, it's like you basically never did it a day in your life, especially snatching.
Yeah, man. Yeah, snatching. Well, there's within CrossFit, there's all these individual sports that people on their own spend their entire lives dedicated to, right? I mean, Olympic weightlifting, people spend their whole lives in Olympic weightlifting. Well, we do that, but also everything else. Rowing, there's people that literally spend their whole lives on the rowing ergometer, accumulating millions and millions of meters to go for a gold medal at the Olympics. We kind of have to do that too, but also everything else. So I guess there's sort of two ways you can look at that. One, like, holy crap, this is, like, so overwhelming. Like, there's no way that I can possibly be the best at all of this. But on the other hand, it's like, well, there's always something I can get better at. So if you ever feel like you're, stagnating or stuck or hitting a plateau, just spin the wheel and pick a skill, and you can get better at that today.
Right. And I think, I'm not sure if this is to quote Matt Frazier or whatever, but I think he was saying that you basically just want to be decently good at everything, as opposed to just being, like, amazing at one given thing, right? Just don't be shitty at one thing.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty solid general recommendation. It's interesting. Well, I mean, this is getting down into the weeds a bit, but the way the scoring system changes through the years in CrossFit can impact that as well. So we're at the point now where, so back in the day, it used to be first place is 100 points, 10th place is 10 points, 32nd place is 32 points, right? Like a you want to have the lowest points, and it's all spread evenly. Now, first place is 100 points, and then second place is like, I don't know, 95 points, and then 12th place is, I don't know, something like 30 points or something like that. So it changes the distribution of points between rankings. So it really does pay off to come in first place, right? Mm-hmm. If you come in first place, you then get a 10-point advantage over the person who came in third place. Whereas in the past, it was only a 2-point advantage. So it kind of pays to have an ace in the hole. Maybe you're the really good, you're Sam Briggs. You can crush any endurance workout and beat all the men. Maybe you're, Matt Fraser that can, he's a bad example because he can crush pretty much everything, but you see where I'm going with that.
What is up, Beyond Movers? I just wanted to hop in here quickly to say that I'm so stoked that you're listening in on this conversation. I always do my best to pull interesting and powerful information from my guests to give you an opportunity to learn from the best. If you're enjoying this episode of Beyond Movement, I would love to hear what you think, and it would mean the world to me if you would leave an honest review. Tell us what you're enjoying, what you think, and I will continue to bring you the greatest minds that I can get my hands on. Don't forget to take a screenshot and post this in your Instagram stories and tag us at matthew.j.philly and beyondmovement.project so we know you're listening in. Okay, so let's get back to this conversation. And as always, let's go. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like CrossFit has just gone in just internet's being a little weird here. I feel like CrossFit has definitely gone in a crazy direction over the last few months. Now, we won't dive in too deep into that. But I'm just curious, like, given the new, I guess, judging scales and the way they score things, are you more of a fan of it now or the way it was in the past?
Well, I'm always kind of a little bit on the fence and a little bit vigilant of, is this fitness testing or is this exhibition? And I think I'm happy with how it is now. I don't know if people are going to have followed the games that closely last year to know all the events and the controversies around them, but one of them was this sprint event. I think it was last year. So they had a sprinting event and there were cuts. So after some events, they would cut people from the field and they'd be out of the competition. And this sprinting event caused some pretty devastating cuts to the field. And that caused a lot of controversy. Was this a CrossFit workout? Was this an appropriate test of fitness? Things like that. Should they have cut now or earlier or later? But I thought I think it is over the last couple of years. I think it is establishing itself as a solid test of fitness because it's including things that aren't just CrossFit Metcons. I think the idea is, well, if you only have a Friday evening to test your fitness, you should do a mixed modality workout that involves some lifting and some pull-ups and some running. But if you have literally a week to do your fitness testing, you can really break that down and you can test a lot of different skills, a lot of different time domains, and sprinting is something that has to be in there. So I like that CrossFit is not just trying to put on a CrossFit show. I like that they're actually trying to test the athletes physically and mentally across pretty much everything.
Yeah, I totally remember that. That caused quite a bit of a scruff in the CrossFit community, and Twitter went nuts at that point. Because I remember that's when I'm pretty sure Pat Vellner got cut on that event, and that caused a ton of controversy between him and CrossFit as well. But yeah, that was an interesting event for sure that I was kind of confused about, and I think I saw a lot more of that in that new Buttery Bros movie that they dropped. I think it's called The Fittest.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to watch that one, but I'm sure it's got a lot of good action shots.
Yeah, those guys are awesome, man. They're so funny. So let's go back to your training, and not necessarily your training, but more like your mindset around the training. Sure. Do you keep a close eye on your routines and your habits?
Probably. I don't know if I keep a close eye on them. I think it's more just like, what's the word? Like intuitive. Like I definitely have routines and habits. I think about them a little bit, but I also just sort of settle into them. And I definitely am a creature of habit.
Yeah, I guess that's what routines and habits are for, right? Like they're basically just to settle in.
So
Um,
you don't have to think too much. I think that's the point.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So do you feel like there's been certain things that have been a huge contributing factor towards your success as an athlete in general?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think my upbringing, both my parents are smart, brilliant people that try to instill, good habits and values in me. Just in terms of, yeah, I mean, working hard, which is a pretty vague term, but focusing on the details, trying to do things well. The phrase like measure twice, cut once. In my household or doing chores in the backyard with my dad, it was like measure 10 times, cut a little bit, measure again, and then make the final cut just to like really make sure. So I think I definitely sort of embody that type of approach to things.
Yeah, so just a fine eye for detail and kind of just a hefty work ethic.
Yeah. And I think so the idea of working hard is uh I'm a little uncomfortable with that because there's plenty of people that there's tons of people that work really hard and don't get what they want, and there's plenty of people that work really hard in whether it's sport or life or career, and it doesn't pay off. So that's um I think, yeah, working hard maybe can be refined to like working, I guess, working well on the right things, which is, it doesn't quite roll off the tongue as easily, but, work smarter, not harder. That type of approach, I think is something that I would encourage, my athletes to do. Like if I give them a workout, I don't want to just give them the coaching cue of, well, just work hard. Sure, that'll help, but maybe I can give them a more specific cue on, well, this transition point in the workout is really important, or well, you'll notice the fatigue from this element is going to creep into the next one, so maybe perform it differently here, and instead of just smashing your head against a wall, you can work as hard as you want pushing a door that says pull, but if you just read the sign and pull, you're going to have a lot easier time, and you're going to achieve your goal of getting through the door.
That's a great metaphor. I love that one actually.
Oh, thanks, man.
So I feel like there's, yeah, as you were saying, basically there's just a few key ingredients in the recipe of like success, right? So working hard is just one thing. And as you said, working well. So you want to be strategic in where you're putting your energy, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So what does your training platform look like now? Like, are you focusing on anything in specific? Are you kind of in between big events that you're kind of working for? Like, let's hear about that.
Yeah, I'm in between, as you put it. So for me, like my season ended some time ago. The plan for this year was to be a little bit different. So 2019, I did a bunch of international comps. I did Cape Town, South Africa. I did London. I did Paris, and I also competed in Sao Paulo, Brazil. So I was all around the world. It was freaking amazing. I got to travel with my family for much of it, so that was a great experience. But there was a lot of time, a lot of energy, and I spent all my money. So the plan for 2020 was to do more domestic events. So I had some comps lined up in Canada, a couple like closer ones in the States. But as with, the COVID stuff, those sort of got canceled one by one. So I was maintaining my training, sort of just waiting for that. I knew that email was going to come in. Oh, hey, yeah, we had to postpone or cancel. But I was maintaining my training through the spring. But now that everything's canceled, I feel like there were sort of two mindsets or approaches I could take. One of them was, don't go gently into that good night, rail against it and say, oh, well, all my competitions are canceled, but I plan to smash myself into the ground on, March 28th or whatever the date was. So I'm going to do it anyways. Or just say, well, this is involuntary off season. So go with the flow, take advantage of the things that you get from an off season that I wouldn't normally have really gotten, especially with the new structure of the CrossFit sport. So to make a long story short, I am in an off season phase.
Awesome. You were saying that you're doing, like, in 2019, you traveled all around the world. I want to talk a little bit about that. Now, I have kind of two questions. So one, kind of, I'm curious as to how you found, because Cape Town, South Africa, an entirely different time zone that's quite drastically
Yeah.
different, right? So I want to know a little bit about what it's like training in different time zones like that and kind of having to compete at a very, very high level. And then two, were you able to, enjoy your time in these different areas and actually travel around, see the sites and stuff like that?
Right. So yes, Cape Town, South Africa, different world, different geography, different people, different dialects. It was a really cool experience, and I was lucky enough to be able to actually enjoy it. I know sometimes, a CrossFit competition, yeah, you go to another city or another country, but you're in and out of a arena all weekend, and then you go home. So I try to make sure that doesn't happen. The way I do that is I try to just book some extra time. The ideal scenario is to show up early so that you have some time to acclimate to the time zone, as you mentioned, which is a challenge for athletes for sure. And then, of course, it would be nice to stay late as well, to have some, post competition, have some beers, try some local cuisine, and do some sightseeing without worrying about needing to train and sleep and all that stuff. Usually I have to sort of pick one of those options, right? So I'll either go early, get adjusted to the time zone, do a couple sightseeing things, hit the competition and go home, or I'll show up for the competition, do it, and then, take a vacation for a week. The way that I try and make sure that I can do that is I'll usually set up like a workshop tour in the area. So for example, if I'm going to go to Brazil, well, that's a long way to go for one weekend and then go home. So I would rather go for 2 or 3 weeks and hit a couple seminars and workshops in the region, in the area, so that I can sort of take advantage of going down there, spend some more time there, earn a bit of cash, work with some athletes. So that's my typical protocol that I try and do, is set up a workshop tour that allows me to spend some extra time there and make a bit of money, because the competition prize is not guaranteed. But with the new structure of the sport this year, you don't really have the luxury of knowing 10 months in advance, oh, that's when, the open is, or that's when regionals are, and you can plan trips around that. So it's been a little more tricky to plan trips. And now that the COVID stuff is happening, that's kind of off the table. So I'm doing more online stuff.
Yeah, COVID has put a wrench in a lot of different things, right? So
Yeah.
when you travel, let's use Cape Town as a reference here. So you travel, there's the two options, right? You either show up the day of, or a day before the event, and you show up for it,
Mm-hmm.
and then you stick around a little bit after, versus showing up let's say 4 days, 5 days, a week in advance. Do you see that there's a difference in your performance when you do either or?
Yes, definitely.
Is it
The
drastic?
It's well, so let me backtrack a bit. Maybe not perform. I mean, I'm sure there's a difference in performance, but it's almost more like, I guess, the effort that goes into a given performance. So it's like, well, I know that I can get a certain score on a workout, but in order to get that, if I'm, exhausted from travel and my sleep is all messed up, like, I'm going to be at a 11 out of 10 to get the score that I know I can get, versus if I have the ideal taper, the ideal acclimation, then I can maybe leave a bit in the tank and get the same score. So I guess it's more an issue of effort as opposed to performance. But hey, if you're sleep deprived and dehydrated, you might miss a lift, right?
That's very true. And then it can be potentially dangerous at that point. Like if you're just trying
Yes.
to PR a snatch.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
What are some of your favorite events?
I mean, I get more excited when I see things that are shorter, more powerful, strength based, sprint based. So one of my favorite events I've ever done in any games or regionals or sanctionals was in Cape Town, South Africa. It was the first event, technically the first two events, and it was on an obstacle course. So it was kind of a surprise event. They threw us in these little like sprinter vans, right? These like chunky little white vans, and we went. We didn't know where we were going, and we went to, like, I think it was a high school. It was a freaking high school in the middle of, for me, in the middle of nowhere. And it had this amazing obstacle course, like better than like a full military obstacle course. So I don't know what those kids are doing in that school, but I would have loved to have had that when I was like a kid growing up, right? That would have been a
That sounds
dream.
amazing.
It was so cool. It had almost every obstacle you could imagine. So there were, the logs to go over and under. There were, rails to cross in various forms. There was a big up and down monkey bar section. There was a variety of rope nets and things like that. And there was this hanging series of implements that was actually the second event. So they broke the course up into two parts. Yeah, super cool, a lot of fun. And I came first and second and was in the lead after that. So that was a great experience for me.
It sounds like the weirdest kidnapping of all time. But pretty
Get
epic.
in this van. Yeah. Run this course. Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess CrossFit's, known for doing crazy shit like that.
That's true. Yeah, it was pretty par for the course. And of all the sanctionals I have done and other competitions, that South Africa one was the one that felt the most like the games, because we had off-site events. We had events in a outdoor arena on a track in a stadium. We had events at the beach, like swimming water events on the beach, and secret events and things like that. So that was a really great competition. And they actually got kind of shafted this year. I think they were scheduled for around the same time, which was like I think it was like January-ish. And that would have been fine for the COVID stuff. I think they still could have pulled it off. But there was like a big, massive international tennis fundraiser that came in and took the arena for that weekend that they wanted. So they got kind of screwed.
Yeah, no kidding. And tennis is a pretty massive sport, especially out there, I think.
And, of course, yeah, they're doing a fundraiser, so they're helping sick kids or starving people or whatever. But come on, man, I want a CrossFit.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your motivation and kind of what drives you. I again, going back to what I said, you seem to be very independently driven. It doesn't seem at all, and this doesn't surprise me whatsoever, that you give a shit about what people think. So you're not kind of out there for the accolades, the praise behind, coming first in a specific event. Now, obviously that's kind of nice, and it's always nice to be on the spotlight for winning a massive event, but it doesn't seem like that's necessarily what really drives you. Now, is there other things that kind of are in the back of your mind that keep you pushing to be like your best, even though, during a day when you're exhausted, you didn't get as much rest, maybe your meal prep wasn't on point or whatever, but you get up and you put the work in and you get yourself back on track? Is there anything that you kind of tend to focus on a little bit more?
Yeah, that's been an interesting evolution for me. I think if you'd asked me the same question, 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 1 year ago, the answer was probably going to be different each time. I think it used to be, like you said, hey, it feels good to get praise. I've been trying to get better at just saying thank you and really accepting, praise and accolades and things like that. But I think I'd agree with you that that's maybe not the driving force. For me, years ago, it really was more about I don't know if the word is like cerebral aspect or like the training. So like the validation of training, right? I really was like, okay, well, I want to plan out a year of training and then I want to see it pay off, because that makes me feel like I was good at planning out training. I think now, like, I just want to have a good time. I enjoy training. I'm good at it. I like pushing myself. I can do cool shit. I have this amazing body that can lift and climb trees and swim in the ocean. And like, I just want to do some cool shit with it.
Man, your reels lately, like on Instagram, and I think you're on TikTok now. Man,
I am on TikTok now. I apologize. I'm on TikTok and we're on a Zoom call, so our computers are fully compromised.
It's so good, man. The things you're posting, like with these that scream, that's like your big thing right now. That scream with in the background of the Justin Bieber song.
Justin Bieber, yeah. Yeah, I can't take credit for that. I saw that, posted by a few other people and I was like, oh, that's freaking hilarious.
It's so
and I think it applies. Yeah, exactly. It applies pretty good to falling off a pull-up bar.
Yeah, exactly. And you're the one that you recently posted of you brought this up and it made me think of that specifically when you jumped off the tree and it was clearly reversed. It was so funny.
Oh, okay. So you picked up on that. Yeah. It was clearly reversed, but if I was to do that again, I would try and synchronize it better so it looked like I was really jumping.
Yeah, jumping like 8 feet up into a tree.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. And you were mentioning that, over it's something that's been kind of accumulative for you in the sense that what drives you has changed, right? So over the
Yeah.
past 5 years, if I had asked you 5 years ago or individually each year, you'd probably get a different response for that. And I feel like that's probably, that's a characteristic of somebody who's constantly looking to improve anyways, right? Like you're just always looking
Hmm.
to grow and find the areas that you can improve on and kind of tinker with your weaknesses, right? Is that
Hmm.
something that you find that you're kind of keeping an eye on, is where can I always improve, not necessarily just in your training but in other aspects as well?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good insight and a good description. And it's I think I am someone that is always looking for every minor, like, so brief example, I figured out, like, every time I'm living in a new place, like a new house or apartment or whatever, I I essentially figure out the exact, most efficient route of, getting, down the stairs and through the door, and what steps and when to unlock the car and which leg you step in with, and when do you put the key in and hit. So all the, little details, things like that. I don't know if that's a mental problem that I have. I might be just uh, but yes, so I think I'm actually someone that has to dial back on that a bit. I think I'm someone that needs to kind of, like, I guess, release control, or like loosen the grip slightly, right? So I guess the analogy is like, if you're trying to hold sand in your hand, the tighter you squeeze it, the more it's actually going to slip through your fingers, right? You sort of need to take um, a loose but effective grip in order to actually get what you want to happen. So I think that's something that I've learned that I need to integrate into my sort of psychology and being. And a great example of that was, I had an appointment with an osteopath the other day, and for those who don't know, osteopathy is kind of like a mix of chiro and physio, but it's a little more like, I don't know if the word is like holistic, a little more subtle. But so he sort of gave me some interesting insight into, oh, well, uh, tension from the nervous system, so the autonomic nervous system, the vagus nerve, things like that. There's, internal tensions, external tensions, and some of the, postural issues that I was having may have been due to past injuries cause, like, an extra tensioning and, like, just holding of, your body in certain ways, and that's a safety thing, and you don't want to let that go, but you actually need to find ways to down regulate the nervous system and allow your body to let go and reorganize. So I think on a micro level, that's something that maybe you deal with your knee or your ankle, but on a macro level, I think that's something that can be effective with your training or your life, sort of loosening that grip, allowing things to reorganize themselves, and find a more smooth and easy and comfortable path forward.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, totally. It's wild what the body will do to try and protect itself from said injuries, right? But
Mm-hmm.
going back to where you said specifically, you were talking about control, and I feel like that's an area that a lot of people, if you focus too much on having too much control, sorry, that can be like a huge ingredient towards like your anxiety and issues in
Yeah.
terms of not being able to cope with specific situations, right? I feel
Mm-hmm.
like there's a really good mix between having control over specific things but also being able to let go, as you said.
Yeah, and I think that's something that maybe we never master, but we always can get a little better at. And striking that balance is going to look different at different points in life and training. And I can, if, let's say, I'm 2 weeks out from a competition, I can't really be a chill Zen master and just, oh, let everything be. I do need to control my my macronutrients and my sleep and my time zone acclimation, all that stuff. Otherwise, I'm not going to perform at the level that I want to. But at other times in the year, those, like, you think of it as a bucket or a cup, right? And everything you do in some ways either adds stress to that bucket and fills it up, or removes from it. So if you're squeezing too tight, if you're adding too much to the bucket at other times in the year, you're just not going to have you're going to fry your circuits, right? You're not going to have the juice in the battery. I don't know what the analogy is, but I think there's, as with everything, there's an ebb and a flow to some things. Sometimes you need to put the hammer down and exert that control. And other times when all your competitions get canceled, you just got to sort of go with the flow and find some other ways to make progress as an athlete, whether that's rejuvenative style of training or mental game exploration or whatever it is.
Yeah, man, you're like the master of analogies. You're pulling them all from left, right, and center, man.
Hopefully they make sense.
Yeah, for the most part. So let's go back again to, you just said, that's something that we could, you can't necessarily master, but we could all get a little bit better. And I feel like that's something just very similar to training, right?
Yeah,
you can't
definitely.
necessarily perfect something. Like it'll never be absolutely flawless because there's always something to critique, right? And I guess weightlifting is a really good example of that because of how technical it really is.
Yeah.
There's always certain things that you can improve on. As you said in the beginning of this conversation, there's people that spend their entire lives trying to master this specific sport, right? So, and weightlifting again is like a perfect reference for that. So again, it's very similar to being able to control your emotions, control your thoughts. These are all things that are kind of deep inside who you are and your being, right? So again, it comes down to a lot of who you are and how you were raised. But again, as you said, it's a lot of just trying to get better, progression over perfection, right?
I'd say so. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a golf club, a weightlifting bar, a samurai sword, every time you make a swing or a pull or a strike, everything you've done in your life has led you up to that point. The accumulation of practice of sets and reps and thought processes and tensions and experiences. And so then I guess after each swing or pull or strike, then there can be a reflection process. Oh, what went well? What didn't go well? And then you get ready for the next one.
Yeah, that always blows my mind. The amount of like old experiences or just things that happened to you years ago can affect exactly how you react to a specific situation today. Just, it freaks me out at the same time as it's fascinating. It's just wild.
Yeah, so, I guess we're just, yeah,
it's the way we're wired, right? And, having a deeper understanding of that is super powerful. So let's quickly pivot. CrossFit, obviously, as I mentioned, has taken a massive turn over the last 3 months with, a new owner, stuff like that. So I'm just curious, like, what's next for Tuke Luke? I love saying that, man. Tuke Luke. It's so perfect.
Thank you. Yeah. It rolls off the tongue nicely. Sure. What's next for me? Well, I'm going to try to start ramping my training up. A recent announcement in the CrossFit schedule is that, the CrossFit Open has moved back to its original home in February, March. So recently they shifted and said, we want to do the Open in the fall, right? It was going to be in October. I think that was the way it was last year, maybe the year before. Now it's switching back. So you sort of got to be on your toes with all this CrossFit stuff to know when you got to do your 5 weeks of suffering. But it's nice to know that I don't have to be ready in, 2 months from now. I have a bit more time, so that'll be a nice gradual ramp up back into training. But man, I don't know. I mean, the way the CrossFit Games is going to happen in 2020, which is literally going to happen in, I think 2 weeks, they're going to kick off the first phase of the CrossFit Games. It's going to be an online competition. So I don't know what that'll look like. I'll watch with great interest and I'll cheer on my friends, my Canadian athlete friends and my training buddies at Training Think Tank. But if that's the way the sport's going to be for the next year and the year after and the year after that, or however long this pandemic stuff is happening, I don't know, man. Online competition every year, that doesn't tickle me the same way as going to Cape Town and swimming in the ocean with sharks and sprinting up hills with sandbags. it's not quite the same thing. So I watched the Titan Games with great interest this year, and man, that looked like a lot of fun. That honestly looked right on the money for my skill set in terms of speed and power and agility and adaptability and new skills and sprinting through obstacle courses and things like that. So, man, if they do another Titan Games, I really want to take a crack at that. I think it's possible to do both, as we've seen the winners of it were all CrossFit athletes, right? There was Matt Chan, there was Spiegel, there was Margot Alvarez. So they're all great CrossFitters. So I think I'd be a pretty awesome contender at the Titan Games. So hopefully I'll be able to do an application.
Yeah, and you get to meet The Rock. that's like the best part of all of it.
Well, I don't know, man. I feel like if I stood beside him on camera, I would never be able to live that down. He's just a massive mountain of a man.
Yeah, I mean, he's like 7 feet tall and just 300 pounds of muscle. That's it.
Yeah.
All right, man. So before I let you go, one of your recent posts on Instagram was like a little bit of a, let me introduce myself kind of post, and you gave a little bit of insight onto who you are and your story a little bit. And I noticed that you're quite the fan, or were at least a fan of Lord of the Rings. So I wanted to finish off here by doing a quick 5-question quiz for you to see how well you know your Lord of the Rings shit.
Oof. Okay. I hope I don't get exposed as a fraud here. I must admit I have not read the Silmarillion, right? That's the hardcore Lord of the Rings fans have all read and memorized the Silmarillion and all the details of that. So I'm not on that level, but go for it. I'll take my best shot.
Would you consider yourself a fan or just somebody who enjoyed the books?
Well, geez, I'd consider myself a fan. Yeah, I enjoyed the books. Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. All right, let's get into it. It's funny, man. Like my wife always disliked those movies, and I finally convinced her to watch Lord of the Rings.
Oh no!
And this is before I even read that post from you. And so the last 3 nights we've been breaking up the Fellowship, the first movie, into basically 1 hour chunks because it's long as
smart.
Shit.
Yeah.
But she's loving it. So it's funny that we're ready to do this right as I'm basically watching the Lord of the Rings.
That's amazing. Yeah, and it stands the test of time, right? Like those movies came out quite some time ago, and they're still pretty amazing in terms of their, I don't know, production value and special effects and everything like that.
Oh man, I think the first one came out 2001, and when I saw that, I was mind blown. You can tell, like, watching movies these days, it's insane the effects that they have. Like they've come leaps and bounds, but back then it was definitely like a pioneer type movie. Like it changed the game for sure.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
All right, you ready?
Okay,
5 questions. So they're just quick, simple questions. Let's see how easy they get. More and more challenging, I believe, as they go. So question 1, how many hobbits originally set out from the Shire?
Oh no, I want to say 4. Was it Frodo and Sam and Merry and Pippin?
Damn, you even got the names. Perfect. Yeah, so that was 4 for sure. Question 2, what is Samwise' last name?
Gamgee.
Yeah, that was an easy one, right?
Yeah, come on. He's the real hero of the story.
This one gets a little bit more into it. Legolas, what was his last name?
Oh, I don't recall. Sorry.
Not a real fan. Greenleaf.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Did you even know that? Because I had to. I basically Googled these questions, and I never knew that.
Yeah, I don't think it comes up in the movies, but I think it's in the books, which that was in my childhood, so I haven't read those for a while.
Right. Yeah, because I'm watching the movies, and I'm like, I have not a clue. It doesn't even really matter to the story, right?
Well, not as much. Yeah.
Okay. So question 4, what was Gandalf's horse's name?
Shadowfax.
Ooh, baby. That was a good one. Yeah.
Woo!
You had that one in the holster. You're ready.
Yeah. That was such a cool name for a horse.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Last question. So the Nazgul, what race did they used to be?
Oh, what race did they used to be?
You find this one out in the first one. So
Damn.
this is like one of 3 questions that I got right.
Wow. Okay. Nicely done. The Nazgul. What race did they used to be? The Nazgul. Can't tell you.
They were men.
Oh, really? Oh, I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
So what was they were men, and then what, they died and got cursed or something?
No, yeah. So essentially they were cursed uh um for eternity for trying to, they got there was a conspiracy around the ring and they had to,
Yes,
they were corrupt and stuff like that, and that's basically
there you go.
so they're no longer men.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Cool. So that was kind of fun. First time I ever done anything like that.
Yeah, I'm glad I got a couple answers right. No.
Right on, dude. Again, so this was super fun. Super grateful that you took the time to sit down and meet with me, man. I really
thank you, Matt.
it.
It was my pleasure. It was great talking to you. It was nice to sort of relive some old CrossFit Games memories, and also be able to reflect and share some of my thoughts on my evolution over the years.
Yeah, kind of go back and feel like you're back in Cape Town again, getting kidnapped.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. I wanted to say a huge thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to sit through this conversation with me. It's honestly my mission to bring you the greatest minds and pull some epic information from them to help you view your life through the lens of thought leaders and game changers. We're on a daily journey to be one step ahead of who we were yesterday, and I am excited to have you right here to walk this road with me. One of my goals is to help more people take control over their success and their daily lives. And one of the best ways to do this is with your reviews. This helps us rank the show to get it in front of more people. So if you enjoyed this episode and you have a quick moment, it would honestly mean the world to me if you would leave a review and comment about what you liked and maybe even who you want to see on the next show. Don't forget to put the tools you learned through this episode to practice, and I will see you next episode. Let's go.